when there's more people operating really in deep trust, really being a divine channel, and really not being afraid of what's always been there, I feel that we could create actual utopia on this planet.
Welcome to the Deja Blu podcast, where we believe that living a life of magic can be the default. Join us each week as we playfully and authentically dive into the mysteries of life and explore what it truly means to be human. From spirituality, wellness, and all things taboo, we don't hold anything back. So without further ado, let's let the magic unfold. Before we get into today's episode, I'm going to talk about today's sponsor, which is Becoming with a Q. They have just officially opened their Becoming Allies program. This is a 5-month online container that is going to take you to the depth of your soul and start to carve out from the inside out a true new blueprint of what it truly means to live a life of alignment on all levels, bringing in master teachers from all different walks of life to take you on a journey, illuminating and amplifying how you perceive yourself and therefore how you perceive the world, allowing you to truly walk from a place of abundance. If you have had an opportunity to watch the Becoming Blue documentary, which is on YouTube, you'll be familiar with the becoming process where Azria Becker interviewed me and we continue to carve out my own individual becoming that has allowed me to be where I am today. And so this is a very meticulously designed, hand-curated container to support you to become everything that you are destined to be. All of the information you need for the program is in the show notes, and I would not walk, I would run to navigate your way around the Becoming website to learn a little bit more about the majesty that they are offering. I believe in Azria Becker and Benjamin Becker with my whole heart and soul. They have impacted me in infinite ways, and I'm truly excited and honored to introduce to you the Becoming Allies program. And now, without further ado, welcome to today's episode. Hello, you beautiful beings, and welcome back to another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. Honestly, I think podcasting has become one of my all-time favorite things because I get to sit across such remarkable individuals and have their undivided attention for over an hour and be able to share and extract their wisdom, not only for my personal gain, but also being able to record and share it with all of you from the comfort of your own home. It is the greatest honor, and today is for sure no exception because this man has rippled into my life of a tsunami of inspiration. He has brought so much levity, joy, play, celebration, creativity, activation, connection, genuine care for all sentient life, for all being, and constantly, while also embodying a great amount of wisdom. He is such a humble student of life constantly. And so to be in his presence, to be in his aura, to be in the parameters of his creativity can only leave me, and I'm presuming everybody else, with the utmost inspiration and empowerment to live a more expressed life. And so it is such an honor to be able to welcome this motivational speaker, best-selling author, guide, mentor, brother, father, husband, an incredible integrity leader and steward of the earth and the future generations. It is truly an honor to welcome back to the Deja Blu podcast, Garrain Jones.
I'm waving all this stuff in my heart. You ever get the opportunity to be acknowledged by this divine goddess right here, it is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
I've also coined your little heart packet.
Oh, yeah.
And so anytime that I receive something that like makes my heart flutter a little bit, I have like brought you with me in my little heart pocket, and I'm like, just take an extra moment to pack my heart pocket with the appreciation and love. Mm-hmm. Thanks for being here, Garrain. I'm so excited to have you back on the podcast, and now that we're actually in an official set, because I'm pretty sure last time we podcasted it was since, we've done 3. The first podcast
It did something happen to the the tape or something like that.
Something happened with the tape, so we lost that whole first one. We did a second one, which was at the comfort of my dining room table in my house.
Yeah.
And now we actually have a proper set. So we are evolving, just as we are individually, so is the podcast.
And so is our friendship.
And every single time we drop in, there's a new iteration. It's a new season of our own lives as well.
Yeah.
And so it's an opportunity to continue to go through the waking dream together and keep being able to bounce off of each other's inspiration.
How far we've come.
And what?
And look how far we've come.
I know.
Yeah.
My catch up with yous are quantum.
Yeah.
There's always so much. Like it would be like what? Like 4 months, 5 months since we see each other, and there'll be like these spaces.
Yeah.
And our catch ups, it's like we can't stop talking for like 2 hours straight, and it's like we bounce back and forth, and it's like, okay, give me your update, and I'm fully in the active listening, and then it's like pass the baton on, and then I go into like and you go into active listening, and then we see the interlacing of how our stories are actually running parallel but are in our own unique ways, and then the inspiration that we can bounce back and forth, and the reflections. And I think that, to be honest, that is really one of the greatest gifts, I think, of being human, is to find resonant beings that have their own unique medicine and have their own unique flavor and are doing their individual work and their unique soul signature contracts and curriculum, and at the same time be able to come together and receive so much inspiration and so much wisdom and reflections and guidance, and then to go back out into the world and have those little pockets of human that feel like home. And
it's our own it's like our own version of church. It's like you come, and then there's a recharge, and then there's a message, and then there's a lesson, and then there's blessings, and then you go out, and then you come back. It's just elongated in whatever we call time, but it's a beautiful marry of connection in its finest evolution.
Exactly. That's exactly you. Perfectly put. In my experience. So something that really is just fresh on my heart right now, and I think it's just, if we were to look at the altar of our lives, and there'd be like main pieces on that altar of what it is that we offer and what it is that is super important to us. Of course, there's many things. However, one thing that I really have in common with you is the importance and the power of play. Yeah. And last night, both of us had the gift of being able to attend a live Know Thyself podcast with Andre, hosted by Andre, and he had an incredible, remarkable guest, Dr. Gabor Mate, on the podcast. And one of the pieces he said was one of the greatest medicines we can ever give ourselves is play. Yeah. And it is something that is rippled and laced in every single thing that you do, whether you are interacting with your delightful wife, or playing with baby soul, your daughter, or in your offerings and your retreats, to your book. And I would love to hear from your fresh perspective and lens how play impacts your life. Why is it so important? And why do you believe that Gabor said that it is one of the greatest medicines we can give ourselves?
That's a really great question. And when I speak about play, I don't mean something that I'm trying to do to get attention or to seek approval or to gain significance, because that's like a false sense of play. I mean, when your channel is open and what typically would trigger you is alchemized into into a container that just allows divine and ancient wisdom to pass through your channel. Part of that wisdom is the essence of play. And so it on the surface, it seems like, play is just like, oh, I'm going to go dancing. No, but there's so many dimensions of what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. So when I speak about play, I'm speaking about the 400,000 people who had to die just for you to be here, your ancestors whose DNA is encoded in every inch of your fiber, and every one of those details of your ancestors is whispering a secret, saying it is safe to be yourself, and it is safe because everything that you do is being held by us. You know what I'm saying? So when I say play, it is the easiest way to say all of you is welcome, all of you is held, all of you matters, the dark, the ugly, the snotty cry, the love, the passion, the zest, the zeal, the bravery, the courage, all of it in the wholeness of you, just allowing yourself to maneuver emotions. And emotions is it's the gateway between the non-physical world and the physical world. And you cannot see the non-physical world, but you can see the compound effect of it in your life. So what play does is it allows you to harness those and play with those emotions. And the more that you play with those emotions, your body gets used to it. And when your body gets used to those emotions, now all of these other outside emotions don't take you down, don't crowd your life, don't suffocate you, don't get you overwhelmed, because who you are when you represent play it's at your natural essence. Like your natural state is joy. You just look at a little baby, you look at a little kid. They don't ask for permission, they just are. There's natural joy, there's natural courage, there's natural curiosity. So you tapping into play is you just remembering who you've always been, that most people forgot, because most kids get their lives stripped away by mom, and sometimes not on purpose, they just don't know any better. By mom, by dad, by society, by skin color, by the religion, everything just gets stripped away. But when you're in play, it's a remembrance. And so I love it because it's the world that I play in. And one of my biggest whys is to guide people back home to themselves. And play is a major highway and a gateway and a vehicle that will tap into that realm.
There have been moments that I have shared with you that have reminded me that there are levels to the play. And there are so many levels. And you exposed levels I didn't even know was possible that exist. And let me explain, one at least. We were at a gathering. Even just going back to that memory is so good. We were at a gathering and everyone was having a great time. It was a birthday party and a lot of people were on the dance floor. And everyone's sort of like high energy, but like in there doing their own thing and like kind of jumping up and down. Now you come in and it's clear that you've got some sort of attention. I can see it. There's like a glisten in your eye, and I'm like, Garrain's up to something. And you start like hyping everyone up, and you walk like going around the space, and you're making eye contact with every single person that you can that will look back at you, and getting everyone on like some cohesive page of like, okay, we're in this together. We're not just dancing individually, but we're like a shoal of fish at this point. And so you're starting to like captivate everybody. Then all of a sudden you're like bringing the energy up and hyping and hyping and hyping. And all of a sudden, because of those moments of eye contact, you have got everyone on a cohesive page. And the intention is to recognize that we have an opportunity to collectively to build the energy. And so you start building it. And then all of a sudden this circle forms. And because there is no part of your consciousness that is wavering, you weren't questioning yourself, just like the child that you just described. You weren't thinking, oh, I don't want to look a bit silly, or well, maybe this is a bit too much, or maybe this won't work, or maybe I won't get everyone's attention, so we can do this. Like, there was none of that. It was just pure, unwavering, this is what's happening. And I could feel it in my body, and the hype and the music was building, and the hype was getting so real, and you and I were.
I remember that, and we literally became one.
We became one. It was like, you know what's more powerful than one person that's unwaveringly committed to this build is two. And Blue's right there with me, and I was across the circle on the other side, and we locked eyes, and we were like this, and I was 100% in on what was happening, and the whole circle was building. You got it right to the top, and then the beat dropped, and everyone lost their mind to remember their heart.
Yeah.
And it was a moment that will be etched in my heart forever, because you exposed the next level of play to me. The next level of claiming it, the next level of what it means to be an adult that has not got disconnected with their eternal child, and the unwavering, life-changing power of what that moment can do for everybody that was blessed enough to be a part of that experience, because it will create a new seed of what's possible for them to access joy, which is one of the most heightened states to manifest from.
Yeah, I remember like it was yesterday, and then when we locked eyes, it was just like a boom. And then it was like this trampoline that was harnessing these frequencies and this energy, and it just, you could not help but to go where it wanted to go. It's like a song that's building up. And one thing I want to share is that, when I was in music 12 years ago, what I was known for was I created harmonies, not for perfection, but for feeling. There was a way in which I could hear one note of a song that I'd never heard before, and I'll say, "Put me in the booth," and then all of a sudden, I'm doing all of these harmonies, which if you single them out, none of them are perfect. But when you put them together, it created this feeling. They're like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "It's something I feel, and I just trust it." Well, when I left music, because I got burned so many times, I was like, F this music. I don't care anything about all these people, these shady people. And I'd say about 2 years ago, I was in a deep meditation, and I was feeling bad, a lot of guilt and shame for like just abandoning music. And then a voice came through and said, "Garrain, you never abandoned music. You just evolved from the container that you are in. You were known for putting harmonies together, but your new harmonies are people, because they all carry a resonant melodic tone to it. And see, Garrain, that's why you create cultures, and and that energy that happens, those are your new notes." And I was like, oh, I weave all different kind of people, and then them by together isn't like perfect, but then you just weave it all together, many different kinds of people, and it produces a specific feeling. And I was wondering, how did I get the skill set to walk into these 400 Fortune 500 companies and teach them about company culture, to create a higher level of production and team spirit and cohesiveness and inclusion. And it was just something that I knew. And I'm like, oh, every soul has a note. And I find the note. I find the sweet note. Right. And if there's a 3-part harmony, sing one note off key, it throws the whole song off. But if you can understand the language of notes, find the notes inside of people, it becomes a big puzzle piece for me. And I love puzzles. So then it became this whole thing. And now I'm in this work doing these kind of things. But I realized there's so many kids, and I have this saying, adults are deteriorated children. So I have this thing where I teach people how to put their puzzle pieces together, and then teach them the tool set so they don't need that guidance. At least no longer, I don't want to keep people around, but unless they want to stay around, but I teach them those tools so they can like really untoggle their jigsaw puzzles, and then be able to be someone who's really whole inside of themselves. It became this whole thing. I'm like, I've had these skills my whole life. Now I want to teach people how to find their own unique imprint and put those puzzle pieces out. Another form of play.
Yeah, another form of play in writing a symphony based off of the unique vibration of a human being and the ability to hear it.
Yeah.
Right? There's an acknowledgement there. Because it requires a deep level of listening to be able to actually feel the resonance and the harmony that lies, or the harmony that is possible based off of being able to hear the individual note of the person. And I think that that's also been one of the blessings with my hearing decreasing, is that my heightened sense of feeling, of being able to feel the note that lives within the individual.
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest gifts we can ever give another is to be able to hear the unique frequency of what it is that they have to offer in their superpowers, their gifts, and on all of it. And then reflect back to them the beauty in which we witness, the beauty in which we hear and what we feel.
Yeah.
And then your superpower is to connect the notes together that vibrate and resonate with the individual.
Which is what you experienced inside of that room.
It was a level of mastery and genius that was so effortless and yet so intricate, and almost felt like you were calling in the power of Odin. Like it was like hailing from another dimension. And it's something that has always now invited me into what's possible within my own being, just by being able to witness it within you. And I think that something that I would love to also hear your perspective on is, what do you believe is the impact when we allow ourselves the fullest expression of the essence of who we are in every given moment?
What is the impact? I love that question. When you look at nature, you look at the sky, you look at the stars, you look at the ocean, you look at the leaves, you look at the fruit, the trees, the gardens, the bees, the animals. None of them are trying. They're all being. The bird is not trying to be something that it's not. It's not trying to be the alligator. The bird is utilizing everything that's already inside of it, and flight takes place. The giraffe is doing the same thing. It's its unique imprint, and it's using everything that's inside of it. So you can literally see how nature always reproduces. It always duplicates. Nature takes its time, but yet it is so vast. It always restores itself. And there's a youthfulness and an ancient wisdom that's coinciding in the same container. The impact of a human being, when you tap into your innate nature, nature says, now I'm going to do the rest. Nature starts running its nutrients through you. So when you're in deep trust, you gain access to presence. You gain access to the inherent wisdom, the ancient wisdom, the ancestral wisdom that's just looking for a channel to flow through. And when you're tapped into that, you just gain insights that in the humanly realm, you have no chance of being a vessel for. And so the possibility is us being able to be around as long as nature has been around. You know, the typical human living right now. Right now, it's just like what people are, just like the average lifespan right now is like 70 years, if that. And something inside of me says, why does it? I think that was an agreement that everybody was like, oh, they died during this time. We died during this time. I only got this much time. In my head, I feel like I'm going to live for longer than 150 years and able. I can see it. I can feel it. But I know a tree is like, man, when am I going to die? I don't feel like growing fruit today. I don't want to do this. I'm tired. It just gives, and gives, and it never says, you owe me. The tree never says you owe me. But for some reason, it's always constantly reproducing. The sun never says, you owe me, after giving and giving and giving and giving and giving its truest nutrient and its truest gift. So I feel that what is possible if we as a collective were to truly, truly tap into who we really are deep down inside. We would embody the same longevity as trees, as the ocean, as the stars, as the sun, and we'll be 1 billion times more powerful. I watch little kids, and I'm like, the capacity to learn, grow, create, discover, risk, be curious, and then an able-bodied human, an adult. I feel that we could create actual utopia on this planet.
Do you believe that would be possible in this lifetime?
I don't think in its completeness, but I know it will be possible for people to plant the seeds, because you can't be what you can't see. So when you see someone, I was in 9th grade. I didn't start puberty till I was 18 years old, so I was little for a very long time. And I remember seeing someone with a varsity letterman's jacket with letters. I was like, "What's that?" And my friend goes, "Oh, that's a letterman's jacket." I was like, "How do I get that?" They was like, "Oh, you got to either be a senior, you got to be good enough to play as good as them." And they were like, "So you got to wait 3 more years." I was like, "Well, what if I become good enough? I want that jacket." I didn't even care about the good enough or anything. Like, I wanted the jacket. And everybody around me was like, no, and all this doubt. And I was like, I'm going to get that jacket. So over the summer where everybody was playing and doing all this stuff, I got a coach, got private lessons, and I became skilled versus talent. Most people are talented in something, but they're not skilled. I learned early on to start beating on my craft and becoming skilled in the thing that I wanted the result in. The next year, I became varsity, and they're like, "How the heck did you improve so much?" Well, the separation was skill versus talent. And because I saw it, I knew, and if you spot it, you got it. If you resonate with something, it's because it's already inside of you. Well, when there's more people operating really in deep trust, really being a divine channel, and really not being afraid of what's always been there, those who know who knows. You don't even have to say anything. Those who know who knows, because there will be something that just hits your soul in a way that says, there I am. Thank you for showing me my future. And then more people will come. It's no different than a music trend, a dance, these silly little dances that people are doing. Next thing you know, it just, everybody is snap your fingers, whoop, and doing this little thing. Well, what if the new music trend is truly whole humans, not who are saying it, but who are embodying it with all of the elements inside? That excites me.
Mm-hmm. In our catch-ups, in our moments where we sit down and we'll be able to come back together after 4 months, a huge piece that I always have absorbed and learned from you is that when you shift something, when you're in the inquiry of shifting something, a belief, a behavior, or a pattern that was picked up that's not in vibrational resonance with your unique soul signature and your truth, when you have detected it and shine light on it, being your attention and your awareness, and you've shifted that piece internally, I've noticed quantum shifts happen externally in your outside world. Mm-hmm. I've seen things happen in you almost instantaneously after you have detected a deeper piece. And that's something that I find to be such a beautiful trait in those that are pioneering a new way of being, those that are the deviants of society, that are in inquiry to walk a path less trodden or not trodden at all. And so I would love to hear your perspective on what it truly means to do the inner work and how you have noticed external reflections changing right as you've unlocked a deep peace within your inner psyche.
Yeah. So whatever the health of the seed determines the growth of the tree and the fruit that it produces. The fruit is your life. And all you got to do is just look. Most people don't look. What they do is overcompensate, and then they mask. They don't look at the real. And that most people aren't willing to show the real. Like that level of vulnerability, because they got to keep up a certain image. I gave up that image a while ago. And so I think, and I believe that the reason why it is so rapid is because allowing myself to be a pure channel that's not tainted with underlying agendas or when is it going to happen for me or insecurities or something. I really believe that I'm being used for a purpose much greater than even my own human understanding. But because I deeply trust, and I'm going to thank my mom in a second for that deep trust, because this is going to allow people to look back on their lives in certain treasure chests that they don't even realize are treasure chests. But the gateway is through deep trust, not of the adult, but of the little kid. Deep trust, the deep belief, wrapped belief. And, I just want to get into this. My whole life, I blamed my mom because at age 4, she literally made me choose which parent I want to go with as they were separating. I'm a 4-year-old being forced to choose, and my mom said, "Who do you want to go with, me or your dad?" At 4. My brother had already chosen my mom. So she said, "You have 30 minutes to pack because I'm leaving. So you're either going with me or you're going with your dad." And I remember that feeling of dread. I don't want to go. I don't want, and I'm 4. And I'm like, I don't want to go, the feeling of dread, right? So then I said, I want to go with dad. And I knew I was saying that because it's easiest. I was like, I want to go with dad. I want to go with dad. And as I'm leaving, my brother was already with my mom. Leaving, the people are getting smaller because we're driving away. What I now know is my intuition. Something came up, and this is at 4. It says, go with your mom, go with your mom. Go. And I was like, stop the car. I want to go with my mom. I want to go. My dad stops the car, drives me back to my mom. From that point, I didn't like that part of my mom that forced me. And I never would have known that 8 years later that my father would have been murdered. And I would have lived with him if I would have gone with him. And I blamed myself for his murder because I chose to go with my mom. And then a couple years ago, what I discovered was in my mom's highest light, if I take it up higher than her physical shell, I wear a tattoo that says 100% responsibility for everything that you do with 0 excuses for why you can't be or do your absolute best on every occasion with everybody you come in contact with. And I said, in my highest light was my mom being responsible. I mean, in her highest light, in the spiritual realm, in her higher self. And I said, yes. Well, what would have been the reason that highest light would have come through my physical mom and said, choose? And the second I asked that question, I was like, oh my God. My mom gave me the power to choose my own destiny. wait a second. That was the only way she knew how to communicate. Instead of forcing me to, you're coming with me, she said, choose. And right there is when I became a man. And most people don't get that level of trust inside of them until they leave their parents' house when they're 18. So I was 4, making that decision. Funny enough, 10 minutes after I made that decision, that's my earliest memory of my intuition. So I've been practicing deep trust for so long. And so I share that because my intuition is so strong. And every time I deeply trust, it brings me into my essence. It activates my magnetism. It opens up my channel. And my intuition literally will give me an answer that's beyond human. And because it's beyond human and it's coming from the spiritual realm, it doesn't operate on our time. It operates on the time in the quantum field, which doesn't make sense to the human eye, and it will seem like this, but it's only matching my level of deep trust and acceptance in myself. So I had to share that because the rate at which that you've seen it go is matching. It's a twin to my trust and acceptance in myself. Thank you, Mom, for giving me the greatest gift, which was the power to choose my own destiny and not wait for somebody to tell me whether I should trust myself or not. Thank you. Because millions and billions of people's lives will be impacted because you gave me that gift.
And millions of people's lives will be impacted because you chose to see it as a gift.
Yeah, because I chose to see it as a gift and not something that I carried for a long time, which was resentment in the human realm. It's a different game when you take it higher and ask different questions. You get different answers.
That's something that I have found to be a common theme within those that are really living revolutionary, inspiring, and activating lives, are recognizing that we cannot help the cards we were dealt. You cannot help what happened to you at the age of 4 years old. You cannot help the way that your parents went through a separation and you had to choose in that moment. However, what you have done, no matter how long it took you, you went on the journey inwards and asked yourself, how can I reframe this to recognize, actually, I wouldn't be who I am today if that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
Now, that's the very different mindset and mentality of recognizing that there's a lot of people that will compare trauma. Well, I had it like this, and you had it easier. You're a privilege, so of course that's why. And there is a degree of truth there. There is a levels. We don't start all this game of life, this movie of life on the same level, and we're going to have, some people have more resistance than others.
Yeah.
That is true, and there is privilege 100% that exists. And simultaneously, those that I have become my teachers, my mentors, that I have been deeply inspired by, have experienced so much resistance early on in life. However, the same mindset that runs throughout all of them is that they have seen it as an opportunity. They have said, thank you for this because I wouldn't be who I am today. And that very reframe has completely shifted the course of them going from victim consciousness to creator consciousness.
Yeah. And
creator consciousness is extremely magnetic. And all of a sudden, the next step is laid out. The next step is laid out based off of the vibratory state is a byproduct of the story we are telling ourselves around what is or what had happened. And that is something that has been deeply humbling for me on my path in the sense of being human is crazy and wild and discombobulating and filled with what the fuck moments and also filled with, oh my God, what the fuck moments, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a full spectrum. It's every key on the keyboard. However, I don't believe a single person on this planet is going to bypass the sacred shit of what it also means to be human.
Right.
However, every single person has the power to choose how they frame it.
You know, I want to add to that, because along with that awareness, my whole life I was always late, and I didn't know why. I was like, oh, I'm always late for things, or I would procrastinate, and I could start packing 2 months before, and then right before 30 minutes before I had to leave, I'm like forcing it to happen. There's this feeling. Well, guess what happened? Remember when I was 4 and my mom goes, you have 30 minutes to pack. And I remember dreading not wanting to choose, dreading. And then I pan out to my life when I thought I could get anywhere, like pan out 35 years, I thought I could get anywhere in 30 minutes, even if it's 2 hours away. My packing, procrastination, all of that stuff. When I'd go to a restaurant, I'm like, oh, you choose for me. And there was this thing. I realized the origin of where that came from, because when my mom gave me the power to choose, at the time, the way I interpreted it is, you're forcing me to choose. I don't want to choose. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Dread. So that what was behind me being late, procrastinating, not choosing, and wanting everybody else to do it, and waiting behind and waiting to the last 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, I still have 4-year-old Garrain is still carrying dread. And I went, I processed, I released. I processed on the ground. There's many different ways of processing. I'll lay on the ground, and then all of a sudden this energy moves through my body. I start shaking and breathing, or I'll go swimming, or I'll go running. Something where my body's in motion, and then I'll just let out this yelp, and then the little kid part of me just boom. And then I just feel lighter. And so I was able to do that. And when I did that, you create space, you make room for the next level. You create space, you make room for your blessings. There's 2 cars parked in a garage, you can't park anything in there. If you take those 2 cars out, you could park something in. So when you see those shifts happen, and they happen rapidly, it's because I have created deep space, which the divine order of the universe will always fill it. It's a part of it. It's a law. You know, there's water in here, and if I take that water and I keep pouring into this cup, and I pour it to the tipping point, and I keep pouring, it'll spill over into the next container. And it's like, because everything, space is filling space. Creation begets creation. And so when you release something, the thing that typically comes in is coming to take its place. It's the substitute teacher that now gets a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. Your story reminds me of, I'm on the other side of the spectrum with my relationship with time. And it's still coming from like a place. Yeah. It's just the other side of the coin in the sense of when I was a child, my father was always late for things, and my mother would sit in the car and stress. Oh, your father, and would just like be in this and I'd be sitting in the back seat, and I would feel this anxiety around time. Yeah. And then later, when I was training in the Air Force at the age of 17, if you were a minute late, standing at the end of your bed at 4 o'clock in the morning with everything perfectly ironed in salute, if you were a minute late, the whole platoon had to run extra laps that day. So there was this pressure, not just personal pressure, but from the whole platoon. If you're late, everyone now is like pissed at you. Yeah. So there was these like multiple layers of lacing of like around time. And so
I can feel that energy right now.
It's like, like I'm always at least 5 minutes early for everything so that I don't have to sit in that like, so I'm hours early before my flights. If I've got a podcast, if I'm going to be anywhere, But specifically, if I have made an agreement with somebody to meet, for example, okay, let's meet downstairs at 9:30, and it's 9:35 or it's 9:38, and I'm sitting there and I'm like pissed. I'm annoyed. And it's all stemming from my relationship with time, and therefore then like projecting out into the space of like an irritation. Now there's a sacred balance of honoring each other's time and honoring the time that was agreed upon. However, there doesn't need to be a leak of energy around anxiety or frustration or agitation. And so it's recognizing at the root of like why we are the way that we are as adults. And why is there, being curious is one of the greatest attributes, I believe, in an individual, because it's like asking a deeper question instead of it just the anxiety or the dread of actually, and the procrastination, and just letting it be a blind spot that has zero inquiry or curiosity around. What there is, again, another common theme in thought leaders, pioneers, people of inspiration that are in my life, they're very curious. Why am I agitated right now? Because the easy option is to go, well, it's because you're late. So it's your fault, right? However, the actual deeper inquiry is recognizing, like your tattoo, I'm 100% responsible for every emotion that it is that's present, and therefore creating the experience in which is reflecting back to me a deeper part of myself that needs attention and awareness. Yeah. So the inquiry and the curiosity of being like, there it is. There's that little seed that happened when I was a kid that has now, as an adult, 25 years later, it's playing out in ways that's creating a divide within my personal relationships. So something that you are so brilliant at, and I'm yet to be able to actually experience this work that you do. However, I can already feel the potency of it, is the inner child work. Right, so we're talking about the curiosity being able to detect these pieces that sprung from a moment where our consciousness got fragmented and we only could respond to it with the attention and the awareness that we had at the moment. And sometimes at the age of 4, maybe it's actually not that much, or learning how to navigate these situations. How do you guide people and yourself to be able to access those places that the corrupted data or the information actually end up sitting in our bodies, so that now 20 years later, we're doing things that we don't want to be doing. However, I would say that it's without the awareness or the skills to be able to access these places, it can be quite difficult to go back to that file and rewrite the code so that it actually hums at the frequency of inner peace.
So there's several things. So one of my highest priorities in any container is safety. I don't play with safety at all, and like in my retreats or masterminds, like one of the guys had like spun his little, emotional intelligent jargon web on one of the students in my container, and knowing that safety and not like trying to frolic with one of the sexual energy and going after the students and using your position of power. And it's one of my best friends, and I kicked him out instantly, and he can never be a part of anything that has to do with anything, because and safety is number one, because the safer the nervous system feels, the more it will feel free to want to release what's in there. Most people don't feel safe, probably because the container is not set from a verbal standpoint. It's like, well, I don't know. It's like, so anybody who comes into any of my spaces, that's what I continue to talk about. That people sign contracts. I put a high emphasis on the level of safety. That's number one. And then number two, when it comes to me, I can often safely take people to areas in my life where I've gone in myself. Most people that I know, there's a lot of people that do plant medicine to reach these places, but they're not 100% conscious. It like dissolves the ego. The places that I've gone and those depths I've gone was before I ever did anything with plant medicine. So it was like I got a chance to work with the ego and through the ego. And so I had to go through the hardest routes. It wasn't the easiest route. It was the hardest routes. So what that did over time was conditioned me to be able to walk through fire without getting hurt and build language, practical language around it, and be able to use myself and my story in a way to wrap people into a container of safety, get them to visualize themselves of what could happen if they allowed themselves to be open. But then when you create a container and the intention is for 100% of transformation, not even 100%, and I expect it, and I trust everything that's going to show up. Even Gabor last night, he was like, I don't have a fear of what's going to happen when somebody's shaking and doing all these things because their body's not used to energy that they've pent down since probably birth or when they were 4. I do not fear inside of an environment where I am a clear and pure channel with no agenda other than you being the highest expression of yourself, or at least having an open and an opportunity for whatever's meant to come through you. So for me, there's safety, there's trust, there's personal example. I cannot say enough about being willing to go first and then being vulnerable and sharing your own personal, this is what happened whenever I used to cheat on all these women and then I became committed and I'm just saying it and boldly saying it. And all of a sudden, there's 3 people that come up to me. They're like, I've never told this to anybody, but I feel safe with you. Blah. Mm-hmm. That is how that happens. The safety, the vulnerability, the personal example of my own life experience and overcoming and the result of it. I speak the result of it in a way that intrigues people about their own life, because then they start imagining their life with this level of peace while still being a high producer, or this level of intimacy, or this level of love, or this level of relationship. And if they will allow their ego to be safe inside of the space and want to play with it and not like get rid of it because it's a part of you, that's where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of like when you go into a massage, if your muscles are cold or they're tight or they're tense, you're not going to be able to get in there and really actually release the tension. And so it requires heat and warmth and a depth of breath and a calming environment and some sage and some beautiful music to allow the nervous system to fully relax and rest. And then in that place, once the muscles are actually resting, it's a slow softness of being able to really get to the depth of the muscle and then release the thought pattern that is attached and stored in the muscle memory to allow actually release of that piece that was stored in the body. And so it's more, it's a direct relation as just on an emotional level.
Yeah.
You know, so the safety, the trust, the container, the relationship with you, your empathy, your ability to relate and be in the vulnerability of your wounds and your scars and to lay them all out on the table is essentially the necessary ingredients to allow the release of the muscle from a place of trust and safety. It makes perfect sense.
And then one thing I want to add is, I was telling you earlier about talent versus skill. There's a lot of talented people in this coaching industry who are not skilled. And there's a lot of untalented people who are skilled. The untalented people who are skilled go further than the talented people. But if you're talented and you're skilled, that's a separation. So just like a fighter is going to train kicks and punches and kneeing the heavy bags, and they do it over and over and over, but they're training skill sets to build a pattern of instinctual behavior inside, and then once it gets into the fight, the planet, the universe, the stars, everything comes through them, and then it literally just patterns that way. It's not the same punch or the same kick, but they've done it so many times that there's a unique imprint inside of them. Well, The level of student I am is someone who trains instinctual leadership. And instinctual leadership from a holistic standpoint is a coach, is a facilitator, is a student, is a leader. Because the greatest leaders are they lead and they follow at the same time, simultaneously. And it's like when you can cultivate that and be a leader who creates and develops leaders. So a lot of people who create followers, and it's like their business rises and falls on them. I've been that. But then it's a very different caliber of person who's a leader, who creates and develops other leaders, and they can walk away from their business and their business still rises. Those are the types of leaders that I'm working with and developing, which is why your favorite coach's favorite coach is a part of my programs, because I've been in leadership for over a decade, building communities and seeing, I can literally walk into somebody's business within 5 seconds. I was like, that person's having sex with this person. That person is like, it's like how I facilitate transformation. I can facilitate somebody's business the exact same way, because it's tapping into the same thing of deep trust, being able to see what's in alignment, what's not in alignment, the energetic imprint. But I share all of that because in those spaces, the result that happens through the people is because there is a skilled, almost samurai in a room with other samurais that he has worked with. So anybody that I bring into the space, I coach them up. They already are gifted. Like, say, for instance, I brought you in and I brought 5 other like energetic practitioners in. If you're on my staff, you're someone who could lead this retreat by itself. So I don't casually bring people in. When I bring somebody in, they're coming into a very high level, very high skilled. Most people, they're like, man, I've worked with this big name person whose company is worth 300 million or whatever. And I was like, yo, I've never seen anything that's this efficient, this engaged, the way that you trust the people, the staff that comes in to support the space. I've never seen somebody trust that way. It's all part of the conversation. So all of that is contributing towards, if I have an event with 60 people and they're all laying out on the ground and they're all releasing, including the cameraman, including the cameraman and women and the videographers and everything. And I have the people who can hold that space. So it's not just Garrain, it's Garrain, the people who he powerfully chooses to be in the space, and we're all holding it. And there's just an energy present that's beyond the human understanding. And as we're all channels, it's all running through us. And that's what creates the transformation and the deep levels of healing.
Mm-hmm. The work that you're doing is impacting so many people's lives. And I think also, you know, even when you don't realize it, just when you walk into a room and we walk into a space, there are people's lives that are changed just by being in your presence. I can share also, you know, I asked Rach yesterday if she had an opportunity to engage in conversation with you last night. And she said, oh, you know, we only exchanged a few words, but constantly just felt the presence of what you emit, even when you're not even really conscious of it. And I thought that was such a beautiful reflection, because embodiment is felt beyond words. Embodiment is an energetic wake that we leave behind as we continue to weave through life. And it's the shoulders back, heart forward, eye contact, deep listening, love, engagement that has become the essence of who you are. And ultimately, as a byproduct of all of the work that you've done internally, all of the ownership that you've taken, all of the moments that you've called yourself forward through a deep level of curiosity. And I think that when we get to a certain point of recognizing that this is genuinely activated on all levels of my existence, and of course there's a constant unraveling as we continue to weave through life, it gets to a certain point where it's the choice of to serve it and to create these spaces so that others can be able to access within their own being what it is that you have learned that has helped you on your path, so that you can actually inspire people without saying a single word. And that has been such a gift to be able
You
to
see me.
Oh, fully.
You love me.
Fully.
I know. You see me. You see me. See you. See me. See you. See me.
I was sitting yesterday at the event, and there's just moments of like overwhelming love that I have for you, you know? And like there's a moment where we held hands and I was like...
I'm literally about to cry right now.
I just, you know, it's a deep appreciation that in your presence, like I feel more love for the world. That is such a rare gift. And there's moments it feels like I have to just express it by holding your hand and just let you know in that moment through telepathy of like, thank you for allowing my nervous system to rest in your presence. I had so much anxiety yesterday at the event because I couldn't hear what was going on, and Lily was acting up, and it was so much moving through me, and I was sitting there and I'm like, from the outside it may just look completely fine, but from the inside I was like, because I get social anxiety with my hearing, and just to hold your hand in that moment allowed my whole nervous system to relax and rest. And it was such a beautiful gift to be able to have people in my life that I can communicate with without saying anything. And it actually speaks more than 1,000 words. And so I just wanted to, in person, reflect that to you, that I was so happy because when I got there early with Rachel and we sat, I wanted to sit front and center so I could hear. And it said 3 reserved seats to my left. And I was like, I wonder who these VIP people are, you know, sitting on my left, the reserved ones. And it was you, and sitting right in the seat next to me. And I was like, thank you, God. You know, it's like, it's my homie, my brother. And so thank you for everything that you do, and for the continuation of us being able to weave parallel in this life, and for being friends and allies and support. And I believe in everything that you're creating and everything that you're doing from the depth of my being. And I'm just so eternally grateful for you coming on the podcast today.
I'm allowing for what wants to come through, to be seen as such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And I just want to say thank you for seeing me and reflecting me in a way that sometimes I may not even have words, but I've always felt it. So I have a deep desire to bring people back home to themselves. There's some coaches, they follow me. But no. Lead with me. Grow alongside me. Let me be an example, and then let you be an example, and let's ping pong. That's like have a deep, deep desire. Just remind people of who they are, while I'm getting, you know, as a father for the second time, that people are like, well, what are you working on? I was like, yo, to be a present dad and lean all the way in and not put it off on mom, that's stronger than, that's harder than any workshop or 5 days in the dark or 10-day silent retreat I've ever done in my life. And Baby Soul has taught me on a much deeper level how to come back home.
Baby Soul is his daughter.
Yeah, Baby Soul is my 15-month-old. She has taught me on a deeper level how to come back home. And I was like, oh. And little Garrain is saying, thank you. And I want to give that to people.
You do. All the time. Even when you don't realize it. You just can't help it anymore because it's so deeply embedded into every 70 trillion cells of your body. They're all vibrating at the frequency of inspiration, play, connection, unity, curiosity, creativity, and love. They do. So you are.
And it's growing, it's getting bigger. I'm in these rooms where these billionaires and people sell their company for $900 million, and they're like, I want to learn from you. I'm like, what do you want to learn? You want me to teach you how to play the drum? They're like, no, I want what's inside of you that would have you stand up front of 300 strangers and completely be yourself. Everything in my business is, I've overcompensated and I've stressed out and I have a relationship with my kids and business becomes my identity. And it's like, but the level of authenticity and just freedom you have, that's what I want. Teach me. And I'm like, makes sense to me because that is beyond, there's people that have billion-dollar businesses and, I have billion-dollar, trillion-dollar beyond money is not even a dollar amount that can compare to the level of trust and reverence I have for people coming back home. And I think now, by me accepting the bigness that's always been inside of me since I was a little kid, the universe is responding, and it responds fast because it becomes plastic according to the thoughts that you give the most power to. But if the thought that you give the most power to is deep trust, well, there goes your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And everything starts responding to that essence. So it's within, so without, and our inner world shifts, so does our external reality, constantly reminding us that we actually do have the power, and the power is in our ability to respond. We can recognize that we are in constant co-creation with something that's so vastly beyond ourselves, that cannot be named. The light behind the sun, it is ineffable of the intelligence that runs in what we are in co-creation with. And that is something that we do not have the power over. However, what we do have the power of is our ability to respond. And that very piece alone can determine the trajectory of our life lived from a place of inspiration. And that is what you do so effortlessly and so well. And so it is truly an honor to be able to share your wisdom, your stories, your grace, and your embodiment with the Deja Blu podcast listeners. And thank you so much, Garrain, for being here today. For all of those that would love to continue to follow you on the journey of your life as it continues to unfold and your inspiration of everything that's shared through you, how do people find you online?
You'll find me on Deja Blu podcast. We already did one, did two, and this is the third one, but you will only see two. My Instagram, Garrain.Jones, and my website, GarrainJones.com. I do the most powerful retreats in the world. It's called Awaken, the Artist Within. The artist is the little kid inside of you before life stripped everything away. And I teach people how to tap back into that energy, and then it unlocks a power, which I call artist power. And so I have retreats and leadership and mastermind things that are coming. Just follow me, and when I release something, there's your opportunity. And the only opportunity that you don't get are the ones that you don't take. So you can find me there. And my book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life, is on Amazon. And I can't wait to meet you in person and squeeze you and put you in my heart.
Perfect timing, right, to close this podcast out as the gardeners have chosen to turn on their lawnmowers outside. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do as I continue to reflect the beauty that I see within you. And it is truly an honor to be able to utilize my platform to share your voice to those that have never met you or come across you, or just to continue the journey with those that have. I love you so much. I appreciate you, brother, in all of the ways. I'm so grateful for everything that you are. And thank you for offering the greatest gift, which is your time and your presence to myself, to Rachel, to the podcast, and for all of those blessed enough to meet you.
I love you too, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
To all you beautiful humans, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. If you resonated with it, which I'm sure you probably did. And you would like to share it. You would like to share it with those that are your loved ones, with your followers online. Please go ahead, share it on your stories. Tag myself, the Deja Blu podcast, and Garrain Jones on Instagram so that we can reach many more people that we can on our own individual platforms. And may this podcast inspire you, uplift you, reconnect you to your play. The creative adult is the child that survived. And so how can you activate that eternal child that lives within you today? How can you just spend at least 1 hour doing something that lights you up in ways that you haven't felt since you were about 5 years old, and recognize that your vibrationary state is your contribution to the collective? Thank you, Peter Crone, for that quote. And it's recognizing that in our play, in our celebration, in our joy is one of the greatest medicines we can give all 70 trillion cells in our body, but also those that are around us. So how can you activate it today and be able to absorb the wisdom, the nuggets of gold from this podcast, and allow it to align with the fabric of your service? Until next week, thanks for tuning in. Sending you so much love. Mwah. Today's sponsor of this podcast is Becoming Prosperous, which is a 4-week online self-guided course aligning you with what it truly means to live a prosperous life. So if you want to check out the link in the show notes here on YouTube and also on all podcasting Audible platforms.